Hello theorists, as a primer to the horizontal analysis of music, we have to start understanding the idea and the basics of melody and how to analyze it. We want to know that melody needs to be listened to be understood, and to be analyzed. You cannot just look at the page, you have to listen to it, because melody by definition are pitched sounds arranged over musical time. So there's sounds over time. And you have to take the time to listen to the sounds played over time. Before we go into the analysis, I want to introduce you to some of the basics of melody. And this is first covering the elements of melody, and later we will look at units of melody. At a later point, in a different video that is, I will also introduce you to expression and syntax of melody. But first things first. A melody has certain elements. First of all, it's the material of notes that we have. Basically, it's our scales. This could be conventional scales. This could be modes. This also could be composer-created pitch sequences. The material can be diatonic or chromatic. And this is basically the basket of notes that the composer can use for the melody. The second element is time. Is a melody terse, short, moderate, middle length, or protracted, which means it's a longer melody? Another one is the motion of the melody. Is it going stepwise? Is it skipping? Or is it leaping? Stepwise also means it's a scalar movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we have the skip, which is defined by about small interval, and leaps, those are large intervals. Further elements of the melody include range and tessitura. They have to be explained, I think, because sometimes I hear them synonymously, but they actually have different meaning. Both can be a wide or a compact range, or a wide or compact tessitura. The range, however, is the distance between the lowest and the highest note that occur in a melody. So if you're looking for the range for a certain instrument, let's say you want to play a melody but with a violin, you have to look for the range of the melody. If it goes below G3, then you cannot play the violin on that melody, because that's the last note we have. That's the open G string. That's the range. And also there's a theoretical limit to the height of what a violin can play, but that is a quite large range. Other instruments have a smaller range. Also voices have smaller ranges. Tessitura, on the other hand, has more to do with the bulk of notes. Are they rather high, the middle, or low? You've all noticed, maybe you have experienced that as a tenor or a bass, but I know this from my singing as a tenor. My range goes quite some way, but if the tessitura of the song revolves around the high E longer or more, then my voice tends to get very weak over time, because it's a strain. Even though my range is higher, the tessitura of the music is high, and so it kind of sets the tone for the melody as well, and also the difficulty of the melody. So, range and tessitura, here you have the differences. Another quite important element of a melody has to do with direction or contour or shape, but I don't want to use the word shape here, so direction would be the best way to say this. This is basically how the melody looks and sounds as a phrase. So it could be ascending, descending, or level. And this is generally ascending, generally descending, or generally level. Other elements could be undulating, which means It's a wave-like motion. This could be also combined with a descending or ascending or a level melody, but the undulating, it has this wavy form. Sawtooth is a ragged form, or direction or contour, or pointillistic, and which means it kind of leaps around a lot. You all have examples of these shapes or directions or contours of melody in your sourcey text as well. Some that you don't have are in the text are the arching types, which I think are quite important. Is the melody constructed like a door arch or like a bowl arch form? A final element also concerns the rhythm of it. Is it an active rhythm or is it a calm rhythm? And so all of these elements combined help us to quantitatively describe what the melody is and how it is formed. It does not tell us anything about the melody, whether it's good or nice or beautiful or pleasant, but we can make some quantitative descriptions of the melody, which help us to objectively analyze what is going on and understand the composition of the melody, which is the first step in horizontal analysis. As part of the larger topic of musical form, melody, as part of music pieces, also has certain elements or units of form. And so we want to look at those really quickly, which first is the melody cell, which is the smallest fragment of a melody. We have the motive and the phrase. The way I understand this is that the cell is the first germ or the first seed of an idea that then gives birth to a melody through various steps or phases. But you also already can see from my description that to actually understand what the cell is, you have to enter the mind of the composer, which becomes very subjective. So don't get too hung up on defining the cell. But for our purposes, the idea of a song about God would be a cell from which everything originated. I want to have a song that starts with God. The motive, which is the smallest complete idea of melody, and we'll look at the motive in a second a little bit closer. The first complete idea of a melody. Let's say I want to sing about God. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is God is God. Here we have it. That is my motive. You recognize the cell is in that. And then I have God is God. Now if I connect a different motive, a shift of perspective that is, maybe I am not God and God is God, then I can actually construct a phrase, God is God and I am not, for instance. And that would be a phrase which then is a combination of ideas. Now it's two motives, two ideas combined together. And then several phrases together make a period and so forth. But now we leave the melodic form and already enter the song form. So I want to stop at this point and look at the motive a little bit closer, because the motive is where we find the most understanding of analyzing melody. So what's the motive or the motif? The motif is a musical idea that is repeated with modifications or repeated without modifications. So a musical idea that is repeated, and there are different ways of modifying it. I will just give you the bunch and you can look into the texts also to find out more. The first one is the intervallic modification. Then we have the inversion, which you see here. The inversion basically inverts the intervals. Then we have the retrogression, which basically mirrors the melody, and then you have the combination of the two. Furthermore, you can have the augmentation, as you can see, which proportionally elongates the values of notes and rests, and diminution, which is the opposite of the augmentation, of course. Next idea would be an interpolation, which is the inclusion of a new idea into the motive, or a rhythmic modification without actually changing the total length of the song or the motive. So with that being said, you have a little idea of what we can do with the motive, but again, this is just a quantitative, an objective way of telling what the melody does, not how pleasant it sounds. So basically, when we look at a melodic analysis, we try to find the quantifiable elements to make sense of what is going on. And since this is a primer, you will maybe understand later why these first steps are very important. But also, when we ask you to analyze a melody and note these things in the score, now I hope you have a little more understanding of what we are looking for in the analysis of melody. Not of form, not of harmony, but of melody. Notice these variations, these modifications. Make note of the shape or the contour and all the other elements and units that we have discussed. Are there maybe some important motifs that you see repeated more often than others? Maybe you can even identify a cell. But most importantly, find the overall form of the song, which then gives you idea and understanding for how the melody works within the framework of form. Listen to the song, and then you will gain understanding of how to analyze and understand song melody, which is not harmonic or horizontal, but a sequence of pitched notes over time.